faithfully delivering value by interpreting the world's best books. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring the book, The Music Prodigy Factory. When you hear factory, you might picture assembly lines churning out identical products. So, how are music prodigies manufactured, and can their success be replicated? This book will guide you through the secrets of elite violinists' upbringing and the hidden mechanisms behind gifted education. The author Isabella Wagner is a Polish sociologist, and Poland has deep musical roots. Polish music, with Slavic, ethnic, and Eastern European traditions, has profoundly shaped Western classical music. Take the famous pianist Chopin from Poland. Wagner herself has a diverse background. She was born in 1964, received systematic music training in Poland from childhood, and earned a master's in music from Poznan University of Music in Poland. And after graduation, she taught at the Nantes Conservatory in France and worked as a private piano instructor. After teaching for a few years, she pursued a PhD in sociology at the French National Center for Scientific Research, then joined the Institute of Sociology at the University of Warsaw in Poland as deputy dean. Plus, her child became a violin soloist, so she's been a music student, a teacher, and a mother of one. These three roles give her an intuitive, comprehensive view of how the elite music world works. For a young musician to become elite, talent is just the start. The classical world is packed with prodigies, requiring about 20 years of professional training. Over 2 decades, with help from parents, teachers, and professionals, they must socialize and adopt elite music values to reach the spotlight. To uncover the secrets of the elite music world, the author focuses on training violin soloists as a model of elite education. And from a sociological angle, she dissects the mechanisms and hidden rules of the music elite system. For this, she did field work in 6 countries, like France, Poland, and Germany, interviewing 90 aspiring violin soloists, compiling stats on 339 competition students, and gathering documents from over 40 teachers. All these investigations and research findings are presented in the book we're discussing today.
The author divides the roughly 20-year education of violinists into 3 main stages: the child stage, dominated by parents; the adolescent stage, led by teachers; and the youth stage, guided by themselves.
Next, I'll explore how elite performers are cultivated in Western classical music through these 3 stages. First, let's look at the initial stage, dominated by parents during childhood, typically from ages 4 or 5 to 11 or 12, when violin learning begins. One characteristic is that it's difficult from the start and remains challenging throughout. Where does the difficulty lie? Let's compare the violin to the piano. The piano has fixed keys, each representing a pitch. For beginners, they don't worry about pitch accuracy, so piano is easier to start with, but gets harder later. The violin is different. It has only 4 strings. When pressing the strings with the left hand, the position is called a position, and fingers must press the correct spot for accurate pitch.
Right.
However, positions have no clear markings. It relies entirely on listening to pitch to judge location, and through repeated practice, muscle memory is formed. That's why the violin must be learned early, as children's fingers are more flexible when young. In the violin world, there's a consensus that if one starts learning after age 9, the chance of becoming an elite violinist is almost 0. The author's statistics show that nearly all young musicians start systematic violin training before age 8. In the author's sample data, only 1 Polish violinist started at age 11 and gained international recognition, but that's the only case. Starting too young brings its own problems. For 4 or 5-year-olds, they might not even accurately understand the teacher's instructions, let alone have enough self-control. Practicing for hours daily requires someone to help the child understand music theory and techniques, and endure the monotonous daily drills. This role of practice companion naturally falls on the parents. Thus, in the first stage, a three-way interaction forms between the teacher, parents, and child. On the surface, it seems the teacher is teaching the student, but in reality, the teacher teaches the parents, who then teach the child at home. In the violin world, there's even a saying, "I don't need genius students." Well, but I hope their parents are talented. This phrase fully illustrates the importance of parents' role in this stage. They serve as the communication bridge between the young musician and the teacher. Parents' role isn't just about supervising practice. They also interact frequently with the teacher, and some even assist with personal matters like organizing concerts, babysitting, acting as secretaries, drafting documents, or translating. The author mentions a case where Roy's parents had just bought a large house and were preparing to renovate it. At this point, Roy's teacher made a request, asking them to help another young musician named Simon's parents. It turned out that Simon's father had quit his job to support Simon's training full-time and followed the teacher to the city. Financially strapped, Simon and his father had been staying in the teacher's small apartment. The teacher hoped Roy's parents could hire Simon's father for the renovation. No wages needed, just free accommodation. This interaction clearly goes beyond normal student-teacher relationships, but it's actually a common phenomenon in the music world. And once the teacher-student collaboration reaches a certain level, it's no longer just about teaching and learning. It becomes an exchange between two families. Um, the ultimate goal is to gain the teacher's favor, receive more guidance, and eventually enter the elite music network with the teacher's support network. Of course, not all parents need this mutual assistance to gain the teacher's favor. For example, parents who are musicians themselves deeply understand the rules of the elite music network. They recognize earlier than other parents that a good teacher represents a valuable social network. So they plan how to smoothly enter this elite network even before their child's violin education begins. For instance, a violinist from a symphony orchestra told the author they chose Mitch, assistant to the renowned Boris, as their daughter's first teacher. This way, when their daughter is older, she can directly join Boris's class. Because masters won't teach beginners, they only accept students once their skills reach a certain level. Masters only take over. Choosing their assistant is the best path to enter the master's solo class. Boris has students everywhere and extensive connections. Concert organizers, violin makers, media personnel, etc. all have good relationships with Boris, and this is very important.
As for Mitchell's skills, that doesn't matter because he himself can teach the child violin.
Another benefit of musician parents is that they understand that hard work is essential to learn the instrument well, so they will do everything to support their child, dedicating a lot of time to practice daily, such as reducing extracurricular activities and avoiding taking the child out to play. Whereas ordinary parents often can't do this. And parents from musician families with a good atmosphere can also occasionally give the child extra tutoring. Therefore, to achieve the best teaching outcomes, some music schools prefer to admit children from musical families. Oh. Besides maintaining good relationships with teachers, parents' financial investment has already begun at this stage. Parents not only pay for the teacher's tuition, but also fees for attending concerts, various competitions, and purchasing instruments, each costing a significant amount. Take the cost of purchasing an instrument as an example. It can be thousands or tens of thousands of euros, and violins made by top craftsmen can cost millions of euros. Moreover, the unique aspect of the violin is that as children grow, the size of the violin they use must increase accordingly from 1/8, quarter, half, 3/4 to full size. Each instrument must be high quality. Besides money, the time investment also tests the parents. According to the author's observations, for a child to persist in solo education, one parent must be available to accompany the child to lessons, supervise practice, and take the child to competitions worldwide. If the child's solo teacher moves abroad, parents must be prepared to take the child along, to follow the teacher. Therefore, many parents of young musicians choose to have one parent stay home full-time to accompany the child in practice. That covers the main content of the first stage. To pursue the path of a violin soloist, from the start, it's not just about talent or solely practicing technique. The complexity and social aspects of the elite music world emerge as early as the first stage. Parents of young musicians are crucial at this stage. They become the bridge between teacher and child and invest significant time and money. Musician parents, deeply familiar with how things work, dominate this stage. As young musicians grow, becoming able to attend lessons independently and understand instructions, they enter the second phase. The teacher-dominated adolescent stage typically spans from around 12 or 13 to 18 or 19 years old. During this stage, parents gradually withdraw, no longer observing solo lessons or supervising practice. Students and teachers establish a direct, active partnership. Teachers provide direct coaching, while students independently schedule practice.
The teacher's importance becomes increasingly evident at this stage.
As students' skills advance, they gain more opportunities for competitions and concerts. To place in competitions or perform at major concerts, they must rely on the teacher's network and support. Why is that? First, we must understand the elite music world, especially violin, highly values teacher lineage. Violin techniques, instrumental skills, and interpretive secrets are passed down orally from teacher to student. Second, having a highly skilled teacher means students carry the prestige of being so-and-so master's student, making them more sought after. If that student becomes a master, their own students gain access to this influential network. This master-disciple lineage is called a school. Historically, major violin schools include Italian, French, Belgian, German, Hungarian, and Russian schools. These schools interconnect but differ in playing style, technique, and compositional approach. 88, later, historical and political factors drew musicians to Western or Eastern Europe, Israel, and the US. Russian school students mainly came from Russia's Jewish communities. In the early 20th century, Jews in Eastern Europe faced severe discrimination and persecution. Becoming conservatory students offered higher social status and safer urban living. Thus, Jewish middle-class families eagerly sent children to learn violin, piano, cello, and other classical instruments. As persecution worsened in early 20th century Eastern Europe and Zionism rose, many Jewish musicians migrated to Israel, the US, and elsewhere, forming new factions by teaching local students. These complex factions form the interpersonal network within the violin world. A solo teacher once remarked, "If you have Eastern European heritage, Jewish cultural background, a Western passport, and reside in a major Western city, you're highly likely to become a soloist." I can do that. All great violinists possess these traits. This statement reveals the immense power of the violin world's relationship network. For performers, without joining this network, success is impossible. The author bluntly states that without a master's support, even being as skilled as violin virtuoso Heifetz won't guarantee good results. After all, Heifetz is widely recognized as one of the 20th century's greatest violinists. Why is that? Take international competitions frequently entered by violinists. Their intricacies reveal the complex web of personal connections and vested interests in the elite music world. First, to reach the finals, you must attend the judges' masterclasses, and you'd better attend classes of the most influential judges. To access these masterclasses, a teacher's recommendation is crucial. Sometimes the student's own teacher is on the jury. These masterclasses are typically expensive, short-term setups before competitions. For example, the author found one costing over €300, including accommodation. Students agree only through these classes is one truly competition-ready. Because judges won't vote for unknown candidates,
Poor performance speaks for itself.
exceptional performance might threaten their own students. But if you've attended a judge's masterclass where they've reviewed your competition pieces one-on-one multiple times, they've thoroughly assessed your abilities, with genuine potential, even an off-day performance might still earn their vote, a frequent judge teacher confessed. Though he underperformed at the competition, I knew he delivered thousands of superior performances before.
Secondly, judges' preferences are paramount in competitions.
Before competing, you might have polished a piece for nearly a year. But if you're guided in a judge's masterclass and they ask you to change your interpretation based on their preference, you must comply. For example, when choosing competition pieces, many contestants avoid Bach because as a classic violin repertoire, each judge has their own interpretation of Bach's sonatas and partitas, and some may have even recorded albums. If your interpretation doesn't match their preference, even if you handle it perfectly, you won't get a good ranking.
Third, can you get a good ranking?
The quality of a contestant's performance is only part of the criteria. The final result depends on the power dynamics among judges and their ability to negotiate. For instance, before a major competition, a contestant's mother got a call from her friend, who was also a judge in the competition.
The judge repeatedly stressed over the phone that she must switch her daughter from the highest level violin performance group to a lower level excellent group.
After the competition, the friend told the mother that the son of an internationally famous soloist was also in the violin performance group. When I learned he was competing, I immediately knew your daughter had no chance of winning. The friend said that because he couldn't compare to the internationally famous soloist, he couldn't help his friend's daughter get a good ranking. But if she switched to the excellent group, he could negotiate to get the desired result. Unfortunately, the contestant's mother didn't understand the intricacies and didn't follow the friend's advice to switch groups, so her daughter won no awards. So a veteran said, violin competitions can't be treated like gambling because just by analyzing past winners' lists, you can predict who will win and who won't this time. For example, the author once attended the Poland International Violin Competition, and he knew the contestants' backgrounds well. For instance, what violins they used, what social connections they had, whose master classes they attended, and so on. So he predicted who'd get first place and who'd get last. And after the competition, all his predictions were spot on. Therefore, the author emphasizes that this industry has unspoken rules. These unfairnesses are known to everyone. Open unfairness. A 20-year-old Russian solo student said this: the outcome of the competition was decided before the first note was even played.
At this point, the tasks for students in the second stage become clear. Mainly 2 points. First, find a renowned teacher.
Second, gain the teacher's favor and enter their network.
So where do you find such a teacher?
By gaining recognition through masterclasses held irregularly before competitions, then becoming a regular student, a fixed position in the regular solo class. Competitions provide opportunities because judges are renowned teachers, especially in international contests where they're top soloists. Every contestant attends a judge's masterclass. So, how do you gain a master's favor?
A teacher typically has 10 to 20 students, but only 1 to 3 become true favorites.
The teacher pours everything into these beloved students. For example, the author once observed Master Andre teaching and could sense what students he favored from the atmosphere. First was Alina, an 18-year-old Austrian who only attended Andre's masterclasses a few times yearly. Alina's technical flaws hindered teaching progress, making Andre visibly frustrated during lessons. Next was Fabiola, a 14-year-old Spaniard hoping to join Andre's regular class through irregular master classes. Unlike Alina, Fabiola played decisively, practiced diligently on issues Andre raised, and showed great improvement. During her lesson, Andre appeared relaxed and in good spirits. Third was Jane, a 14-year-old Irish girl already in Andre's regular class, attending twice weekly.
Jane was Andre's star pupil.
She instantly adjusted to Andre's feedback during lessons, meeting all requirements. Andre became so immersed in teaching her that he forgot even to drink water while refining musical passages. From these three students, different lesson dynamics, and Andre's varying attitudes, the author concludes that gaining a teacher's favor requires three things. First, solid technical skills. Masters disdain fixing basics. They focus only on refining musical interpretation and expression. If, like Alina, technical flaws affect interpretation, the teacher becomes very dissatisfied. Second, students should be both obedient and more confident in attitude. Obedience means adapting interpretation to the teacher's requirements, while confidence enables quick response to feedback. Alina's overall performance could only be described as timid, while Fabiola and Jane were much more confident. Third, personality-wise, students must mesh with the master's character. Teachers want students to have individuality for distinctive stage presence. They believe personality-lacking students make performances bland and put audiences to sleep, faithfully delivering value by interpreting the world's best books. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring the book, The Music Prodigy Factory. When you hear factory, you might picture assembly lines turning out identical products. So how are music prodigies manufactured? And can their success be replicated? This book will guide you through the secrets of elite violinists' upbringing and the hidden mechanisms behind gifted education. But conversely, teachers dislike overly strong personalities. The author often hears solo teachers criticize that student plays like they're already a soloist, but they're just a student. So, compatibility matters. Only then can teachers and students collaborate effectively. In summary, students with good technique, attitude, and personality are more likely to gain teachers' favor.
While teachers have demands, students also have expectations. Each wants personalized, tailored teaching methods.
When mismatched, students consider switching teachers, a process with unspoken rules. For example, never switch from a high-profile to lower-profile teacher. It implies, do you think they're better than me? And lower-profile teachers usually won't accept such students either, as they may need favors from the prestigious teacher later. This concludes the teacher-dominated second stage. In this stage, we've explored teachers' complex factions and the intricate unspoken rules in international competitions. So, at this stage, students must find a good teacher and earn their favor. When students mature into independent violin soloists, they enter the third stage, self-directed by the soloist.
Note that they're not yet violin soloists.
The step from violinist to soloist sounds minor, but involves 6 to 10 years of rigorous refinement. This stage, the soloist's crucial task is building their own network and integrating into the elite music world.
They gradually detach from teachers, not cutting ties completely, but shifting from active coaching to occasional advisory collaboration. And
one soloist mentioned consulting his last teacher before recording new pieces or albums for feedback. And their relationship evolves into mutual empowerment. For instance, when performing solo concerts, they acknowledge their mentor by name in introductions. Likewise, teachers list all students in publications or media or publicly praise them post-concert.
At this stage, soloists seek new teachers to expand their network. One teacher's network isn't enough. They need authoritative masters, or even become an heir to gain broader support.
Beyond connecting with masters, soloists must maintain relationships with other key figures. These roles are vital for their solo career. First, Pianists, since violin often pairs with piano. Before independence, they used their teacher's pianist. Now they must find one matching their style. A challenge. They need both stylistic compatibility and strong personal rapport. One soloist's mother joked, "What my son needs most is to fall in love with an excellent pianist so they can perform together." The second crucial role is the orchestra conductor. When performing with symphony orchestras, soloists rely on conductors, the ensemble's soul, to master collaboration skills. Yet, gaining a conductor's favor is extremely difficult. Even prestigious teachers' students rarely get to perform before famous conductors. One 24-year-old violinist apprenticed under a conductor like a second in command. He knew this teacher wouldn't teach him much technically, but he'd gain opportunities to collaborate with orchestras. The third key role, owners of top-tier violins. An instrument's quality directly affects its tone. A master violin can cost millions, far beyond most people's means. Thus, soloists must cultivate relationships with elite violin owners. This includes renowned luthiers, wealthy collectors, teachers possessing rare instruments, or commercial violin lending organizations. Additionally, sound engineers help create competition-ready recordings, while composers write pieces for them to perform, all requiring time, energy, and money to maintain.
At this stage, soloists must also compete internationally to boost visibility.
This helps them catch the attention of masters, conductors, and violin owners, gatekeepers willing to admit them into the inner circle.
Notably, famed violinist Menuhin never entered any international competitions.
The reason was simple. His teacher was George Enescu, the early 20th century's most renowned composer-violinist. Thus, Menuhin gained elite recognition without competitions. Yet, despite 2 decades of elite training, few ultimately grace the solo stage. Many drop out due to competitive failure, unbearable pressure, or lack of elite acceptance. Some became violin teachers, some became violinists in orchestras, and others completely gave up their violin careers to switch to other professions. This is the content of the third stage, dominated by the violin soloists themselves. In this stage, the close bond between the soloist and teacher loosens. They need to seek support from more prestigious masters and maintain relationships with key figures like pianists, conductors, and owners of top-tier violins. Another key agenda at this stage is participating in international competitions to gain recognition and acceptance from more industry insiders. All right, that covers the main content of this book. Paul DiMaggio, a sociology professor at Princeton University, hailed this book as the most outstanding study of classical music artists to date. It must be admitted that classical music artists possess extraordinary talent, and their high-level performance skills are inseparable from diligent practice. However, musical lead education is not purely an educational process. It is first and foremost a socialization process. This book can be seen as a microcosm of the standard training model for Western artist intellectuals. Anthropologist Geertz once said, "No matter how bizarre this circle may seem, once you enter it, you'll see the same facts and follow the same rules." All right, that concludes our interpretation of the Music Prodigy Factory for you. Listening notes are below the audio. We'll see you next time.